Okay, so this is going to be the first geometry video that I do tonight. And if this does not cover everything, or if I don't get to everything, I'll put it in additional videos. I'm not going in any specific order, really. I'm trying to stay within the confines of going in a certain general order, but the things that I cover during the process of that may be kind of random because I'm just going to kind of go the way my mind takes me. So and then I'm going to cover more and more of this. Generally, I'm going to put the pieces together in probably several videos. But what we have here is we have a puzzle. And this puzzle revolves around this particular geometry that you see here. Uh, how can we look at things to determine what the correct geometry is? Well, we can look at megaliths, such as Stonehenge, and we can look at things like this. This is taken, let me just zoom in on that real quick. This was taken from the door of a Rosicrucian temple that used to be hidden. It used to be a secret temple. And I borrowed this actually from Timothy Hogan. Here's Timothy Hogan right here, and he is the Grand Master of the Knights Templar. I've mentioned him before. And he's also a friend of mine, but he's also the one that told me that this was captured from a Rosicrucian temple that used to be secret, and it's located in Germany. But if you look at this thing, you'll notice that the triangle, the square, the circles that you see, they all have certain proportions about them that are important. And so when I started playing with this and put it together, I figured out that what the proportions were, but then additionally I was also able to use other symbols to fit them into this symbol, and then I bounced it off of Timothy to see if I was correct. And this is what I came to. So as one function of this geometry that you see here, and if you noticed, I've got these squares, triangles, and circles, and I'm going to go over that with you in just a second. But if you'll notice the way that the geometry of the tree of life fits in here, and if you can see that the bottom one here fits on this lower ring, which is what you see right here, and then the top two, which is Bina and Holkma, they sit right on the bar of this square, and then you have Kether, which fits right in the last part of this upper triangle that you see right here, with its center point, this line right here crossing through this. So you have the same circle crossing through Kether, and you have the same circle crossing through Malkuth down here. And when I asked Timothy Hogan about it, he said, well done, great to see. So I wanted to check with him to make sure I was looking at the right thing. And this is one thing that we see here in this puzzle, and it's related to man. Now we can also see this in other images as well. This was taken from a Buddha that's outside, a very large Buddha. And of course I could tell by his geometry, the way his legs were placed and everything, that he's forming that triangular look that you see right here. And of course when you put this specific kind of geometry in here with this various proportion size circles such as you see, you'll notice that the chakras fit in here exactly where they should all the way up on here. The same geometry as I've shown you before is seen when you see Christ on the cross. And the significance of the cross is the cross itself represents the tree of life, but then you see things like Salvador Dali showing us Corpus Hypercubus, which is a 3D cross, which is what you see right here. But what this actually is it's an unfolded hypercube, which is four-dimensional. And if you take a look at the stars down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you'll notice that that star is the same as what you see Christ sitting in right here. This is from another cathedral. So in both cases, whether Christ is on the cross, and a cross itself, a 2D cross, is folded up into a cube, and this 3D cross folds up into a hypercube. And that's what you see right here is the representation of Christ in a hypercube once again, like we've seen with Salvador Dali. Now just to show you a couple more images, there are various Buddhas, and you can check their geometry and where this ends up. You see where his third eye is located? And it's located at the top of this area right here that goes all the way across to the other side. That is the same as what you see as this box that goes across right here. It's the same line that you see right here. And if we take a look at some of the other images, we can see that it's been used. Here's another one with Christ on the cross. And of course, we're all familiar with this one. But you can see the same geometry is being used every time. Here are some more Buddhas down here. And one way you can tell that they fit into these is if you take a look at the angles of their arms that you see right here on both sides. And then, of course, this halo behind them fits right into the circles that you actually see when you take a look at Metatron's cube. So in one aspect, what we're looking at here is a relationship to man when we take a look at these symbols. This symbol that you see right here is from the snowflake that I showed you. That's actually a picture of a snowflake, and you can see that the same geometry exists in that. So if we were to place this on top of the Buddha, that center star would be right on top of his heart. And so we have these certain proportions. What I want to show you this time is I want to show you the significance of the way this geometry builds on top of itself, and you'll understand how I was able to pick out the idea that these particular proportions were something I needed to be looking at. Because if we take a look at some of the old diagrams of the concentric circles that we see in the old alchemical art, there's usually 10 circles. So if we take a look at this old drawing by Athanasius Kircher, it was done in this was in his Mundus Subterraneus in 1665. This same concentric circle design is what you see when you look right here. Now, when we count these circles, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if you notice, I have a couple of these highlighted in bright white, as well as I do here in the concentric squares. There's one highlighted here, and then I have one around these triangles. In every case, there's 10. Okay, so there's 10 squares, there's 10 circles, and there's 10 triangles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 triangles. Okay, so that given the understanding that situation, we have to know that we're dealing with circles here. And this is where the next piece of the puzzle comes in, because we have to know what is the largest of these circles here. And that's where Stonehenge comes in. So I'm going to give you that real quick, and then we'll come back to this. Now let's go on over to Stonehenge real quick. And let's take a look at something. So here's Stonehenge. And when I first looked at Stonehenge and I started looking at the geometry, I found the same kind of geometry in this. This stone right here would be the same place as where you would find it if it were right here on this triangle. It would be the location of what you would consider Kether if this were to be all of Stonehenge. Another significant thing about Stonehenge that we see that I grabbed from that geometry is this right here, because we have those 56 stones around the outside that we see. And if we move the size that we select of that stone is important, because if we move this by a certain degree each time, we get exactly 56. And this is where circle packing comes in that I was talking about a while back. So if you notice, these circles fit around here exactly. And the same size circle also goes across as well. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 circles going all the way across if we include the outer rim. Okay? And if you notice, this circle here that you see right here that's a little bit larger is twice the size of it. And you can see that this square goes around and goes through the midpoints of these circles in all 4 locations. So this is significant to Stonehenge as well, but it also uses the same geometry, because the same geometry that we're talking about is this Metatron's cube geometry. that I'm showing you right here. So we have a lot of places in history and in symbolism that's showing us this key and this puzzle. So now, how do we know what the size of the outer circle is here real quick? The size of the outer circle, if we take a look at Stonehenge, it gives us a really good clue. So if we pick up this ruler and we select feet and we measure from here to here, let's see, and go straight through the middle, we see that minus a little bit of my error, we're roughly talking 360 feet across. So using that number, 360, and we know that they dealt in feet and inches and stuff like that a long time ago. So 360 is a very important number in all of this. So with that information, I'm going to drop Stonehenge for a second, and let's go back and take a look at the geometry. So if this outer one is 360, and we have 10 circles, then that means the inner one's got to be 36, right? Okay, that's the way it would actually be. But these numbers that we see around here are going to be really interesting, and I'm going to show you why. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take these set of triangles here, and I'm going to place them in the middle of here. Zoom in so that I get this correct. And what you'll notice about them is they all build upon each other. So you have a triangle, and it is bound by a circle, which is perfectly bound by a triangle, which is perfectly bound by a circle, and so on until it's bound by the circle at the end. So all the geometry fits into itself perfectly like a puzzle piece. There's no gaps or anything. And remember, 360 is our outer diameter. Now I'm going to take the squares. And I'm going to do the same thing with the squares that I did. And then we have something that looks like this. So now we have 10 squares, we have 10 circles, and we have 10 triangles. Now, if you'll notice, we have several highlighted circles, squares, and triangle. We have one triangle, we have 2 circles that are highlighted, and 1 square. And if we take that and compare that to this from the Rosicrucian Temple, you'll notice something that's very interesting. And that is that we're using the same geometry. Okay, so now with that information, now let's take a look at the last thing I'm going to show you in this video, and then we will pick up in the next video. Now the diameter of each one of the squares that I showed you matches the diameter of each one of the circles. So since that's the case, we can look at the circles, and that will account for both the squares and the circles. What I want to show you here is that since our largest diameter is 360, which is what we're being shown in Stonehenge, let's take a look at the very interesting geometry that we see here. If we take a look at the inner circle, and keep your eye right up here where this number is. If we take a look at the inner circle is 36. 3 plus 6 is 9. If we take a look at this one, 72. 7 plus 2 is 9. If we take a look at the next one, it's 108. 1 plus 8 is 9. The next one is 144, which adds up to 9. The next one is 180, which adds up to 9. The next one is 216, adds up to 9. Keep your eyes on these numbers, because these numbers are going to come back to see us again here in future videos. 252 adds up to 9. 288, that's 10 plus 8 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. 324 adds up to 9, and 360 adds up to 9. Now let's take a look at the triangles, because the triangles build upon the circles perfectly, but their numbers are a little bit different. 270, 2 plus 7 is 9. 243, 2 plus 7 is 9. 216, there's another 9. 189, that's 9 plus 9 is 18, which is 1 plus 8 is 9. There's another 9, which is 162. Another 9, which is 135. Another 9, which is 108. Another 9, which is 81. Another 9, which is 54. And another 9, which is 27. And like I showed you before, let's just group these together real quick and I'll show you. The geometry of the triangles and the circles all fit together and they build upon each other, creating this. Now, the squares do something a little bit different, because when you take a look at the squares, even though they're all the same diameters of the circle, if we move them over and place them on top, you'll notice something interesting about them, and it kind of tells you where you are. The squares have some kind of a role in telling you where you're bounded, because if you take a look at the squares and the circles together, you'll notice that the first square, the corner of that square, is way before the circle. The second corner of the square is just inside the circle. The next one breaks it. The next one breaks it even more. The next one is almost right on it. So you can see that they kind of change all as they go all the way up here. Okay, and another thing that we can take a look at is if we take a look at Metatron's cube itself. Let's take the squares off, and we'll take the triangles off, and we'll put Metatron's cube on top of this, and you'll notice that where the hexagons end and where the circles end, they end right at the boundary, of 360. Well, it's not exact, but you can see what I'm talking about. The hexagon moves right around this line right here. And so this is where Metatron's cube fits into all of this, and this is exactly the way I was showing you with Metatron's cube a while back. So you can see this is kind of set up to work with this particular geometry. And when we take a look at things like this snowflake right here, which is what I like to use, something in nature that's interesting, you'll notice there's a circle around this star, and if we place this in right here, you'll notice that it fits just perfectly right inside there with everything else. So what is all this telling us? Well, it's telling us something about man, and it's giving us information about vortex math. Those numbers I showed you real quick, I want you to keep those in mind, because we're going to be taking a look at those next time, and then we're going to start taking a look at some information regarding the Earth. So let's take a look at those numbers again. We have 36, 72, 108, 144, 180, 216, 252, 288, 324, and 360. Remember those numbers, because those are going to come up again. So I'll pick up in my next video. You guys take care.